Thanks for joining me. I hope to make this video for you to help you to understand how to activate the really important muscles that provide stability in the hips and the pelvis and the low back, so that when you do other activities, other types of exercises, you're better able to activate these muscles. So I'm going to give you a series of corrective exercises for core strengthening and hip strengthening, kind of the back of the hips, the side of the hips, to give good stability in the pelvis. When we don't have that stability, what we can do is end up overusing certain muscle groups and creating tension in those groups, as well as creating pain. So maybe in the front of the hips or the low back. A lot of pain in this way can be from a weakness in these core muscles and these outer hip and back of the hip muscles. So if we can strengthen them and activate the muscles properly to sort of hold us in a good postural position when we are doing things like standing or doing things in our kitchen, or when we're doing bigger exercises like lunges and squats. So my goal today is for us to learn how to properly turn on the core muscles in the front of the stomach, and then also the big glute muscles and the outer hip muscles. You may have heard them called glute med before. So, and these little external rotators in your hips. So hopefully we can learn how to activate these muscle groups and to hold our hips, our low back, and our pelvis in a good, strong, and stable position. So the first thing that we're going to talk about is a neutral position of your pelvis, and I'm going to face sideways for this. So we all stand and we hold ourselves in different ways. And so some of us tend to, it's called an anterior pelvic tilt. So the front of let's talk about the bones at the front of the pelvis right here. They tend to tip forward, and we end up with an excessive arch in the low back. And when we do that, we're shortening and tightening the muscles in our low back, as well as shortening and tightening the muscles in the front of the hip. We're turning off our belly muscles and turning off our butt muscles. So this little bit of a tilt of the pelvis can make a big difference in these muscle groups and how they're activating and working to hold us up in just everyday positions like standing. Another way that sometimes we can stand is in a slouched position, where we end up with our butt tucked under and our low back has a little bit of a round and we're in more of a slouched position. So you might fall to one tendency or the other. You might move back and forth between them during your day. So in terms of what we want to call neutral, and there's a range of what neutral is, for a few rounds, I want you to tilt your pelvis in both directions. So if you put your hands at the front of your pelvis here and tilt those bones forward into your hands, that's called an anterior pelvic tilt, and then move them back away from your hands excessively, and that's called a posterior pelvic tilt. And I want you to go back and forth a few times, and as you go back and forth, go a little bit smaller and smaller of a range of motion until you find what's right in the middle. And when you find what's right in the middle, give a little squeeze of your butt muscles and draw your belly in, almost like you're trying to pull your pubic bone up towards your belly button. And that'll sort of lock in the muscles in the front of the core and also your glute muscles in the back of the hips. And we're going to do more exercises to help you understand how to actually activate those muscles. So if you feel as we do things today and you're like, I have no idea, I can't activate it, hopefully there'll be other exercises where you can feel it, and then you can translate that back to these other positions. So finding this neutral position, so I'm not forward and I'm not backward, I'm right in the middle. So I'm pulling my pubic bone up towards my belly button, and I'm imagining that I'm lengthening my butt, or if I have a tail, I'm lengthening it down. Not too much, because I don't want to end up in this rounded position. Just enough to, when I lengthen down, that'll help me engage these butt muscles, and it'll also help me engage the core muscles as I lift my pubic bone up towards my belly button. Okay, now obviously I can't function if I just stand in this tight contracted position. When we walk, when we move, it's got to be fluid, But the goal is when you do these types of exercises regularly, that those muscles will then learn how to support you when you're doing things like walking, moving, reaching up, lifting something on your shelf, okay? Or even doing bigger exercises like lunges and squats. If we can learn how to use these muscles properly, then they'll support us in those other activities. All right, so we're gonna come back to that position multiple times as we go along with the exercises. So for the first exercise, you're gonna lay on your back and you're gonna place your feet flat on the floor and you're gonna place your hands right inside those same bones that you were feeling earlier. You're gonna place your hands right inside those bones. I'm actually gonna get a blanket for my head. So if you have a pillow, you could put something underneath your head to give it a little support. So place your hands right inside those bones and imagine you have a belt and you're cinching the belt closer together, almost like you could bring those hands like they're gonna touch in the front of the pelvis. You're cinching that belt together and you're drawing your belly button and below your belly button down towards the floor. With your hands right inside those hip bones, what you're feeling is if there's a hardening of the muscles of your belly. Hold for about 5 seconds and then relax. And again, you're bracing your belly muscles. This is called your transverse abdominis, like you're cinching a belt closer together, like you're pulling your belly muscles down towards the floor. Hold for about 5 and then relax. If you're not sure, like you don't understand or you're not able to feel the hardening of those muscles, lift your head up off the floor and see if then you start to feel that hardening, again, right inside the hip bones. And then bring your head back down. Do that a few times. Get that feeling of hardness, of activation of this muscle group. Again, it's called your transverse abdominis. And then see if you can do it without your head. So let your head stay back and then brace. Pull like you're pulling the belt tighter, like you're pulling your belly towards the floor. Hold for 5 and relax. People also use a cue of as if you're trying to stop yourself from peeing. Now those muscles are the muscles at the bottom of the pelvis, your pelvic floor muscles. Those muscles are a different muscle group, but engaging those muscles at the bottom of the pelvis as if you're stopping yourself from peeing, that can help to kick in these other core muscles. Again, they're called your transverse abdominis. They're across the front of the belly. Pull in, brace. Almost think of it like a corset too, like it's pulling your ribs closer towards each other. You don't want your ribs to flare up to the sky as you do this. Think like your ribs pull closer towards each other, like there's this whole corset cinching in together. So now what I'm going to show you is a progression of some exercises that will get progressively harder. So I might show them to you, you might not do them because you might not be ready for it yet. The most important thing is that you maintain proper form, because as soon as you lose form, then you're going to overuse certain muscles and underuse the muscles that we're trying to activate, thus creating this pattern and this cycle of imbalances. All right? So when we do this next set of exercises, you want your back to remain flat on the floor. If at any part your back starts to arch off the floor, stop. You got to go back to the level before it to keep the back flat. So back is flat on the floor. My core is nice and engaged. I'm going to slowly, and this is nice if you have like a wood floor, you can slowly extend one heel away from you. I'm squeezing my right butt as I kick my right heel out. And then I'm going to slide this heel back up. And again, slide your left heel. I'm kind of on a sticky mat, so I'm squeezing my left butt as I extend my left heel out. And then I slide back in. So I'm going to do about maybe 8 on each leg. I might angle a little bit so I slide better off the floor. There we go. So I'm sliding my heel, squeeze the butt, core stays strong, back is flat, and then slide back in. Core stays strong, push the heel down into the floor as you slide it out, and then slide it back in. So this is the next level of difficulty. Besides just holding there, now we start to slide the feet and move the feet. The core stays strong the whole time as you slide that foot away from you. Back is flat. So you can progress and do 10 on each side, and when you feel like, okay, I can do 10 on each side pretty easily and maintain form, then you know that you can go to the next level. So the next level will be keep your core nice and strong, back stays flat. You're feeling, it's nice to have your hands there to feel and get a cue of, am I engaging these muscle groups properly? So I'm engaged, and then I'm going to lift one heel up, bring it back down, lift the other heel up. So you can alternate side to side. Again, your hands are right inside the front of the hip bones. You want to make sure that right inside those bones, you feel those muscles nice and strong. You shouldn't feel like a softness or a divot down. You want to feel almost like that muscle pops up into your hand. As the exercises get more challenging, you're going to find that those muscles might turn off. So we want to watch for that. This way we don't have any substitutions and compensations. Okay, so if you could do 10 on each side and then take a little break, and you can do another set of 10 if that feels pretty easy and you're like, okay, I got my good control, my back is flat, my core is engaged, then you could go to the next level. The next level is lift one foot up, then lift the other foot up, one foot down, the other foot down. I call these up, up, down, down. Up, up, the knee is right over the hip, down, down. So you can feel as you do this, oh wow, it's getting harder. It's harder for my back to stay flat. It's harder for me to keep my core engaged all the way out to the sides, right inside those hip bones. Keep breathing as you go. You can alternate and lift the other leg up first. Oops. Up, up, down, down, up, up, down, down. If you get any clicking or popping in the front of the hip, I would say go to the exercise prior to it. Sometimes when we underwork the core muscles, our hip flexors tend to overwork, and that's when you get that click and pop. It's probably something, one of the muscle groups snapping in the front of the hip because it's overworking and your core muscles are underworking. So see if going a little bit more slow in the progression will help that. So over time, you might be able to then increase the progression and go to the more challenging exercise. Okay, the next one, back is flat, core is strong. Lift both feet up, knees are right over the hips. You could just hold here for about 20 seconds or so. Make sure the corners are engaged, and then bring your feet back down. Or we can add some movement to it. Both legs are up. Keep the knee bend the same angle. Tap one heel down, come back up. Tap the other heel down, come back up. And I'm alternating tapping. My knee angle of the knee bend stays about the same. If I keep my knee bent, it's easier. Back stays flat, core stays strong. So make sure that muscle is engaged right underneath your hand. And then take a break. So keeping my knee bent like that makes it a little bit easier. You can progress to a straight leg, which is more challenging. Back flat, core strong. Both feet lift up. Reach one leg straight. Squeeze your left butt. Bring it back up. Squeeze your right butt. Kick that leg straight. Bring it back up. So you're alternating sides. You're squeezing your butt as you extend that leg straight. Your back stays flat the entire time. If you feel it arch off the floor at all, take a step back. Keep the knee bent. If as I continue and the exercise is too challenging, you lose your form, either one, take a break, or two, go to the exercise before that we were doing. Last one with this, you can lift both, or actually there's two more. Lift both feet up, arms up. As you tap your heel down, the opposite arm reaches back. As I reach back, my back wants to arch away from the floor. I have to resist it. Tap the heel, come back up. You can move towards a straighter leg. As you kick out, you're squeezing that butt. Your back stays flat the whole time, and you're making sure those outer edges of the core stay nice and strong. What can sometimes happen, I had a teacher call this loafing, which is a funny thought, but the idea makes sense. As you do these exercises, if you feel like all of a sudden the center of your core, this center area, starts to turn into like a bread loaf, all of a sudden everything's pulling in and pushing up to the sky, you lost your transverse abdominis, you lost the outer area. So if you find that all of a sudden it's starting to push out and all right here in the center of your belly is working, that means everything else on the side of the belly isn't working. So go back to feeling like that corset, like it's cinching closer together. It's very easy in this exercise that we just did, it's very easy for that compensation to happen. The other compensation is your back arching from the floor. Those two things are very common. All right, so if you have a ball, you could hold a ball between your hands and your knees. Again, back is flat, core is strong. I'm going to reach my opposite arm and opposite leg away, and I'm pushing the other hand and leg towards each other. And then I come back up, and I switch sides. So I'm pushing hand into ball, knee into ball, as I reach the opposite arm and leg away from each other. Keep breathing. You're kicking your legs straight. Remember, this is a progression. If this is too much for you, you're losing your form, you're arching your back, you're getting that loafing in the center of your core, go back to the one before, or maybe 3 before. There's lots of levels here, from all the way beginner to advanced. 1 more on each side. Squeeze your butt as you kick the leg straight. Back stays flat, core is strong. All right? So those are, you might see those exercises listed as SARMANN, SAHRMANN. It's a series of exercises. So you could Google those, or dead bugs. So there's different variation of dead bugs. We went and we sort of progressed them a little bit harder each time. Okay, so that's your first sort of series of exercises. Some kind of dead bug or SARMANN marching variations. The next one we're going to do are called curl-ups. So for this one, I'm going to get rid of the blanket that was under my head. These are kind of like baby crunches. One leg is straight, one leg is bent. You're going to put your hands either across your chest, by your side, or behind your head. Typically, people say that arms straight is easiest. That would be level 1. Level 2 is arms across your chest. Level 3 is hand behind your head. Sometimes people get discomfort in their neck when they do this exercise. So I feel like hands behind the head is actually helpful for that, but it makes it a little bit more challenging, the exercise. So I'm going to do hands across my chest. Excuse me. One leg straight, one leg bent. I'm pushing my heel down into the floor, and I'm squeezing my butt muscle of the straight leg. Arms across my chest. Good strong core, so that cinching of the corset, pull it tighter towards each other. I'm going to do a little baby crunch, like I'm crunching up to the sky just to lift my shoulder blades off the floor, and then come back down. I'm keeping my chin tucked in as I lift up. Please don't lift up towards the sky. That'll put too much stress on the neck. So I'm tucking my chin slightly towards my chest. As I lift up, I'm imagining I'm lifting up to the sky and then come back down. So it's just a baby crunch. Keep the belt cinching together. And I'll switch sides. Push the heel down into the floor. This time I'll show with hands behind my head. I'm pushing my left heel down, squeeze your left butt. And then again, a little baby arch or lift up and then come back down. Good strong core. Cinch that belt together. Pull your belly towards your spine as you do that little crunch up. Again, my shoulder blades are just barely leaving the ground. Little crunch up and then relax. You can also do this with a rotation. So we'll go to the first side. For this one, I definitely have you put your hand behind your head. So my left knee is bent, my left hand is behind my head. Good strong core, pull in.
Now I'm going to reach across. So I'm reaching my right hand across my left leg, and I'm slowly lowering back down. So it's slow and controlled on the way up and the way down. I'm envisioning that I'm like pulling my right rib cage towards my left knee. So this will get some of the oblique muscles, the side muscles on the belly. And then switch sides. Right hand behind the head, right knee bends. Left arm reaches across. So I'm envisioning my left rib cage. I'm pulling it up and across towards my left leg. I'm pushing my left heel down into the floor. So you could do something like 2 sets of 8 or 10 with each leg bent and each leg straight. To make this a little bit more challenging, whichever leg is straight, sorry, I thought I was going to sneeze. Whichever leg is straight, lift it up off the floor a little bit, let it hover, and then do the crunch. So a little curl up, come back down. This leg is super strong. I'm squeezing the muscle here. I'm squeezing the muscle in my core as I lift up. So I'm going to end up using muscles in the front of my hip and my inner thigh as I do this. If you get any discomfort in the front of the hip, please release the leg back down. And switch sides. Leg is like 3 or 4 inches off the floor. Good strong core, lift up, and then come back down. Lift up, come back down. Again, you can put your hands behind your head to do it. Just lifting the shoulder blades up and then lowering back down. All right, so that's your curl up series. Again, you could do different versions of them, 2 or 3 sets of 10. I wouldn't do every version, but maybe pick one of them and do 2 or 3 sets of 10 of them. Next one we're going to do is on hands and knees. So if you want to put something underneath your knees to support them, please do so. So this is another position where we need to find the neutral spine. So if you go a couple times in each direction, you can go into what's called an anterior pelvic tilt, where I'm tilting the front of those bones of the front of my hip forward, and then a posterior pelvic tilt where I'm pulling those bones back away from the floor. And try to go back a few times back and forth to find where you think neutral is. So neutral is going to be you're in this flat, straight spine position. The front of these hips, the most common thing that's going to happen is more of the anterior tilt. So as we go into this exercise, the front of the hips, those bones are going to push forward towards the floor. You have to use your core muscles and your butt muscles to resist that, to keep it neutral. So I'm in this neutral position, and I can just hold for 5 seconds, like I'm pulling and cinching that corset or that belt, like I'm cinching it together, and then relax. And then pull in, like I'm pulling my belly towards the floor, but I don't round like a cat. I'm just pulling my belly in, cinching the belt, hold for 5, and then relax. So you could stay right there and play with holding for 5 seconds and relax. You can start to reach your arm forward. When you reach the arm forward, have your thumb face up. Hold for anywhere from 2 to 10 seconds, and then come back down. And then alternate, go to the other side, and then come back down. The whole time, nothing's moving in my back. My core is pulling towards my spine. I'm cinching that imaginary belt or corset in towards the center of my belly. So nothing's moving, just my arms. My back isn't arching as I do this. I'm not shifting side to side. Just my arm reaches and my opposite arm reaches. The other option is to do leg lifts behind you. So nothing changes, right? No arching in my back. This is a nice one to do by a mirror so you can actually see what you're doing. You're going to slowly reach that leg back behind you. Keep your foot on the floor to start. Squeeze your right butt and then lift your foot off the floor. It might go an inch. It might go maybe 6 inches, so it's as high as your hip. So when I lift this leg up, nothing changed here. What tends to happen is that you arch your back
and that'll turn your belly muscles off, and that'll compress your low back. We won't get the benefit of the exercise if that happens. So when you reach the leg back and you lift it up off the floor, resist those bones at the front of the pelvis, resist them from tipping forward to the floor. So you gotta pull those bones away from the floor as you reach the right leg up to the sky. Same thing, you can hold for about 2 to 10 seconds. If you want longer holds, it'll be more challenging. Now we go to the other side. Reach the leg back behind you, lift the leg off the floor without tilting the front of the pelvis forward. So pull the front of the pelvis away from the floor as you lift your left leg up. Release that side, first side. Nothing changes in the back. Belly stays strong. Pull your belly towards your spine. Don't let the front of the pelvis tip forward to the floor. You have to pull away from the floor. You can do the arm and the leg at the same time. So I'm going to reach the opposite arm, opposite leg apart from each other. Really watch. Don't let that back arch. Pull the front of the pelvis away from the floor as you reach the arm and the leg apart from each other. You can hold anywhere from 2 to 10 seconds. The longer the hold, the harder it is. If you hold longer, you don't do as many reps. Pull that belly in, pull the front of the pelvis away from the floor. This is also a great exercise for your butt. So you're feeling that left butt muscle engage as you're lifting that left leg back behind you. Once it's the right leg, then you're feeling the right butt muscle engage. Pull your belly and the front of the pelvis away from the floor as you reach your hand and your foot away from each other. Do one more on this side. Keep the pelvis facing the floor, so don't roll. Pull the front of the pelvis away from the floor. You can add a little bit more movement to this one. So if I reach the two apart from each other, then I can pull my knee and my elbow towards each other, almost round like a little bit of a cat, and then reach the two apart from each other, and then you just stay on one side. It's slow and controlled. Pulling my elbow towards my knee, and then reach apart from each other. Really watch, when you reach apart from each other, what's going to tend to happen is your back is going to arch. Your belly is going to drop to the floor. We lost the benefit of the exercise if that happens. Reach apart without letting the back arch, and then we'll switch sides. So I reach my hand and my leg apart from each other. Back doesn't change. Elbow towards knee. Squeeze in, almost like I'm pulling my belly in closer, like I'm rounding like a cat. Pull in, pull in, pull in, and then separate. Do one more on this side. Okay. So now we can do the same thing with a ball. I grab my ball here. So if I lay on the ball, this gives me some feedback. So when I lay on the ball, I want to watch the front of my hip bones. Are they pushing into the ball? If so, I want to tuck under a little bit and push my pubic bone, the bone right here in the bottom of the pelvis, I'm pushing that into the ball, again, to try to stay in that more neutral position. So once you go into the ball, the tilt tends to happen and the front of the pelvic bones push into the ball. So I have to do the opposite. I have to pull those away from the ball, push my pubic bone towards the ball. So I'm on the ball. This would be really arched in my back. The bones in the front of the pelvis are pushing into the ball. We don't want that. We're not going to get core and butt activation if we do that. So I gotta, almost like I have a tail and I'm tucking my tail under, I'm pushing my pubic bone in towards the ball, and I'm imagining like I'm pulling my belly button and those pelvic bones away from the ball. And you can do the same thing. You can do opposite arms. It's easier in a way because you have the ball supporting you, but the ball is also unstable. So there's a little bit more balance and core work that has to happen. You can lift opposite leg. So alternating legs. Nothing changes in my back. I just squeeze my butt and I lift the heel up away from the floor. Squeeze my butt, lift my heel up. Watch if you lift up so much you end up arching your back. It's a little lift. Squeeze your butt to lift that heel up, but keep pulling your belly away from the ball and pushing your pubic bone towards the ball. You can do opposite arm, opposite leg, just like we did a moment ago on hands and knees. You're just doing it on the ball. So this is balancy. It's hard. I'm pushing my pubic bone into the ball. I'm trying to pull my belly away from the ball. So it's all the same stuff. This is just a harder way to do the exercise. I'll do one more on each side. You can also put a band around your ankles to make it more challenging. So if you have a looped band, you put it around your ankles. You're laying on the ball and you do the same thing. Either just the legs. So this is going to give you some more resistance and you'll feel your butt muscles have to work more. So I have to push one foot down to the floor as I lift the other foot away from the floor. The whole time my back stays flat, I push my pubic bone into the ball. You can add the arm. Don't let that belly sag into the ball. Don't let your back arch. And you'll see, like I have one side, like this side's pretty stable, the other side's harder for me. So it just means that that sort of chain of muscle activation is weaker on that side than the other. There's some kind of imbalance there that I want to work on. So I work on this exercise. I lost it there. Okay? So one last way that you could do this, if I don't use the ball, put the ball back, go back to my blanket. If you have a longer resistance band, like this, if you have a longer band, this band has loops in it, which is nice, so you could put one loop around the foot. If not, you can just make a loop. And then I'm going to hold the other end of it. So like we did earlier, but now we just have some resistance with it. So I kick my foot back into the resistance, squeeze your butt, pull your belly in. Don't let your back arch. So don't do that. Pull your belly in. You could reach opposite arm with that resistance and then slowly release. Reach opposite arm, opposite leg. Nothing changes in my spine. Nothing changes in my back at all. And then you would do the same thing on the other side. So some kind of resistance band like this can help make, those are called bird dogs and different bird dog progressions. So to make them more challenging, you could use a resistance band. Okay, planks. So there's lots of versions and variations of planks to do. Super, super important to maintain your form. It's easy to go into that anterior tilt, to arch the back, and to turn off your belly muscles when doing planks. So let's start. Again, I'm going to start with the most accessible and we'll make them more challenging as we go. So you're going to come onto your elbows. I prefer to have your hands separated like this. I make fists. Having your hands together is a little bit easier, but a plank is a full body exercise, so if I can get my shoulders strengthened as much as possible, I'll keep them separated. If it's too much, please bring your hands together. I will show it both ways. So, and I will also angle the mat so you can see it different ways. So the first way, I'll do it the easiest way. I'll bring the palms together. My elbows are down on the floor. My elbows go right underneath my shoulders. Now I'm going to walk my knees back. So I'm on a little bit of an angle. My knees are behind my hips. This is the tilt. So my butt is in the air. My pelvic bones are pushing towards the floor. This isn't doing anything for my core muscles. Pull your belly in towards your spine. Do a little tuck of your imaginary tail, and you'll feel your core working. You want to also imagine that you're doing that cinch, like you're cinching the belt or the corset. You're cinching it in towards the center of your belly. Hold for about 20, 30 seconds. You can progress. I don't like people to hold longer than a minute. You can do multiple reps, but hold for about a minute because we tend to lose our form past that. I'm pushing my elbows into the floor. I'm pushing my hands into the floor. And then you can come down. So I'll angle a little bit differently so you can see my arms. So for this one, I'll do my arms flat like this. Same thing, elbows go underneath your shoulders. I make fists and I push my fists down into the floor. Walk your knees back so their knees are behind your hips. You're on this angle. Do a little tuck of your pelvis. I'm pulling my belly button towards my spine. I'm lifting my pubic bone up towards my belly button. I'm tucking my imaginary tail under. My core is on fire. Push your elbows down. Push your hands down. That'll strengthen your shoulders. Look down at the space between your arms. And then come down. So again, you can hold that. You can start at 10-second holds and then slowly increase your hold time. All right? Maybe do 4 or 5 reps of them. The longer you hold, the less reps you have to do. So the next way we'll do this is off the knees. So a full plank pose. Same thing, elbows under your shoulders. If it's okay and you can keep your hands separated, you'll get a little bit more bang for your buck with shoulder strengthening. Now I'm going to lift both knees off the floor. Guess what? It's all the same stuff. I pull my low belly in. I'm pulling my pubic bone towards my belly button. I'm squeezing my butt. I'm squeezing my legs towards each other, looking down between my arms. As soon as you break form, get out of it. Because once you break the form, you're going to just continue to perpetuate that compensatory pattern of muscle imbalance. All right? So that was knees off the floor. I'm going to go back to my regular position. Progressively getting more challenging, we'll do some arm reaches. So I'm down on the ground. And you could do this, you can also do this on your knees. You don't have to do it in full plank. You can be on your knees and do a reach forward with one arm, reach forward with the other arm. Alternating, nice and slow and controlled. Again, you can do it off your knees, which is challenging. You want to try not to move right to left. Super hard. Okay? My butt, I could see in the camera, my butt started to climb up a little bit. You want to make sure you're level. Your butt is level with your shoulders. You can do 5 reaches on each side, 2 reaches on each side. You just progressively increase your reps. Next, we'll do leg lifts. So everything's the same in the plank. This one you really should do off your knees, so don't do this until you've mastered planks off your knees. Okay? So off my knees, lift one leg, lift the other leg. Nothing changes in my back. As I lift my leg up, I squeeze my butt and I bring it back down. You can hold for longer, or you can hold shorter and then alternate more. I think longer holds are a little bit harder. You just find, you play with it and you see what's more challenging for you. But again, nothing changes in your back. Totally straight. All right, those were front planks. Now let's talk about side planks. We'll start with side planks on the knees. So when you line up for your side plank, elbow under shoulder. The most accessible option is knees are bent, so my feet are pointing to the wall behind me. I'm going to push down into my knee and my elbow. Lift your hips up. Now it's okay if you bring the knees together, sometimes that hurts the hip or even the knee. It's okay if this top knee is a little lifted, or if you even put something like a pillow between your knees. I'm pushing into my elbow. I'm trying to lift my hips up to the sky, but not so much that I end up in this big arch. You want to be straight, in a straight line. Again, this is a good one to have a mirror for. Squeeze your butt. Do that tuck of the pelvis so you're not tilting forward in the pelvis and your butt isn't sticking back behind you. So tuck, like you're wrapping your pubic bone up towards your belly button. You're tucking your imaginary tail under. You'll feel those hip bones or those pelvic bones move backward slightly and then come down. So the good news is it's the same thing. You just apply it to different exercises, but it's the same activation. It's the same cue in the pelvis. So I'll go on to the other side. So feet point behind you. Lift your hips up. Push into that elbow. Think straight line. If it feels better to keep a little lift in that knee, that's fine. You can play with straightening the leg. That would be the next challenge. You can be here and do a clamshell. Keep your feet together, lift your top knee up. Nothing changes. I'm just opening the knee and closing the knee. So nothing changes in my pelvis, nothing changes in my back. You don't want to go into that arch in your back where you start to stick your butt back behind you. That means I'm using all my back muscles, which I don't want to use. I want to use my core muscles. Yes, my back muscles are going to work a little bit, but this is primarily my core, my whole right side of my hip right now working. All right, let's go back to the first side. You can progress towards off your knees. Elbow under shoulder. Both legs straight. Lift your hips off the floor. You can stagger your legs. That would be the next level of difficulty. Or stack them on each other. Watch from rolling forward or rotating back. You want to be stacked. Shoulders are stacked. Hips are stacked. You're tucking gently of the pelvis so the pubic bone lifts up. Your tailbone lengthens down to your feet. These hip bone or the pelvic bones move backwards. And then come back down. So same thing. Start 10 seconds, 15, 20 seconds. Slowly increase your long duration of hold, and then you can do less reps. Okay, last side plank option. Oh, there's two more actually. So you can be here, and you can lower your hips down, and then bring them back up. I like to do these nice, slow and controlled. Sometimes in exercise videos, you can see people doing them really quickly, and that's when you tend to lose form. So you drop your hips towards the floor. They might not get all the way there. And then you lift your hips back up away from the floor. And same thing, you might do 5 reps of them. You might increase to 10 reps. You could do 2 sets on each side, 2 or 3 sets on each side. Last one is a rotation. So with this top arm, I'm going to thread it through and then come back up. And thread it through. So this is some shoulder work as well. And I'm really using my bottom core here to twist and rotate me and then come back up. Twist, rotate, and then come back up. Twist, rotate, come back up. Again, you might do 5 reps, progress to 10 reps, 2 or 3 sets of them on each side. All right? So those are side planks. We got a couple more. So the next few that I'm going to talk about, they also really use your hip flexor. So if you have discomfort in the front of the hip, these exercises probably aren't the best for you. And also the ones that, all the dead bug versions, when I was laying on my back, the marching, that can sometimes irritate the front of people's hips. So just kind of watch and see how it feels for you. If you get any pinching, irritation, clicking in the front of your hip, make it a level easier. All right? So for this next one, I like to put my hands kind of under my butt almost. And what that does is it promotes that neutral position of your spine. When you do this exercise, these next couple series that I'm going to talk about, we end up arching the back a lot. So we want to limit arching the back because that we already talked about that. It turns off your belly muscles and it turns off your butt muscles. All right. So you're going to lay on your back, put your hands underneath your butt. I kind of like make a little diamond like this. You can let your head rest. By having some kind of pillow, underneath your head. It helps actually the whole sort of chain and what your core muscles have to do. So this makes it a little bit easier, having the pillow. So I'm holding behind my butt area, making that little triangle, which is going to promote a posterior tilt, promote my back staying flat on the floor. The first one are flutters. So both legs are straight, and you're going to separate your feet like you're kicking and flutter your legs up and down. Super important the back stays flat, and that corset, like you're tightening and you're wrapping the corset towards each other. So I'm really cinching in, because this is another exercise that you could get that loaf, where the middle belly muscles work too much and they sort of push all in and they push up to the sky. You want to make sure you're getting to the corners, that your outer core muscles are working. You could do 10 on each leg, do 2 or 3 reps of them. The next one are scissors. Same hand position, same thing. I'm concentrating with my core so my back stays flat, and I'm cinching that corset or the belt closer. Now I'm going to do scissors. I cross one leg on top, then the other leg on top. One leg on top, the other leg on top. Back stays flat, core stays strong. I'm breathing, not holding my breath at all. So again, super hard and challenging in the front of the hip and the core. If you get any discomfort pinching, clicking in the front of the hip, take it back to maybe more of the marching that we did earlier, like this. Once you get stronger, you'll be able to do these other ones, these flutters. The last one I'm going to show you is a yoga pose and a Pilates series. I'm not too knowledgeable in Pilates, but it's, I think, like the 100 series that they do, and they do all these arm positions. But we'll do more of like a hold in different variations. So the first one is you can just sit up nice and tall. Heels are down on the floor, chest is up. You want to make sure you're keeping a lift in your spine. If you start rolling backwards in poor posture like this, you lost it. Okay, you're in more of that slouched position now. So you want to feel your butt bones on the floor. You're sitting up nice and tall. You can stay right here. This is working. I'm lifting my spine up. My core is engaged. This is core work right here. Or you can reach one arm forward and alternate so you have less support. Or you can reach both arms forward. I'm pulling my belly button towards my spine. I'm lengthening up, like my whole spine and torso could lift up to the sky. You can play with lifting a leg. Lift one leg up, alternate other leg up. Super important to engage your core, so you're going to feel it in your hip flexors, but you don't want to overly feel it in your hip flexors, which are the muscles in the front of your hip. You can lift both legs off the floor, hold behind your knees, sit up nice and tall. Spine tall, I'm lifting up. You can release your hands. I'm still lifting up. You can roll, it's okay to roll backwards a little bit, but my spine didn't round. Just my torso as a unit, and it's straight, started to lean back a little bit. You can move towards straighter legs, all the way straight. Come back to bent legs. Think I'm lifting my spine up to the sky. I'm pushing through my feet like I could push them away from me. And then come back down. So in terms of holds for those, 10 to maybe 30 seconds, you can do 2 or 3 of them, all right? So that's all core stuff, and that's gonna be important. That same activation is important in everything else that we're gonna do right now. So now we're gonna move into more hip strengthening, but you still wanna engage your core. You're still thinking of cinching that corset and pulling that belt tighter in every one of these exercises. So the first one, you've probably seen this before, super simple. Grab some kind of loop band. Less challenging is putting the band above your knees, like so. Little bend in your knees, and watch your position of your pelvis. So you're gonna probably wanna go into that tuck, where the anterior pelvic tilt, where my pelvic bone's tilted forward. So you find that neutral spine position. So now my back is straight. I'm not in a big arch. My belly is engaged, and my butt muscles are going to be engaged. So if I do the exercise and I'm in this position, I'm already setting myself up for imbalanced muscle recruitment. So find that neutral position, and you're going to keep that little bend in your knees, and you're going to step sideways. You'll eventually start to feel a burn in your outer butt area. Core stays strong the whole time. The only thing that's changing are my feet. So I'm just stepping out to the side. Don't let your back arch. So none of this. Keep that good strong core as you step sideways. And then step back. Keep tension on the band the whole time. If you come too close together and the band gets wiggly, it'll slide down your legs and you also won't get the full benefit of the exercise. So keep the band tense and tight. To make it more challenging, put the band lower at your ankles. Same exact thing. Core is strong, little bend in your knees, step sideways. Again, you'll feel kind of this outer hip area working as you do your side steps. Take 10 to 15 steps depending on how far you have. Belly stays strong, no arching. So as soon as I do this, I'm losing that good strong core container, and I'm overusing the front of my hip, and I'm underusing my butt muscles. There we go, that's better. And then step. Tension on the band the whole time. Okay, those are side steps. Now we'll do what we call monster walks. Again, start with the band up. It's a little bit easier. I'm going to walk forward and backward. Same thing, a little bend in my knees. Keep the pelvis and the spine in a neutral position. So I'm keeping tension on the band. I transition my weight to one foot, and then I transition it to the other foot. Think more wide. The length of each step doesn't matter so much. So we call these monster walks. These are forward, and then we'll do backward in a second. So when you transition your weight onto the one foot, that leg's going to have to stabilize you. Now we're going to go backwards. Same thing, nothing changes in my pelvis and spine. Now I'm going to step backwards. So it's okay if I transition my weight to my right foot and I tap my left foot here for more stability, that's fine too. Come back. So it's okay to kind of tap your foot down to give you a little stability. I'll do one more time. My butt's on fire. And I don't even have the band down low, right? So if I put the band down lower, it's going to be more challenging. But already I can feel that working in my butt area. So you can do backwards with the band around your ankles, and you can do forwards with the band around your ankles. Going forward, you'll feel a little bit more activity in the front of your hips. If that bothers the front of the hips, then don't do it. Just do the backwards one. So backwards will activate more of your butt muscles. One last one you can do with your band at your ankles. Step it. There we go. Little bend in your knees. And then we're going to do taps backwards. Tap back. So as I tap back, nothing changes. It's a small tap. So meaning I'm not taking this big kickback, because as soon as I do the big kickback, I'm going to arch my back. So nothing changes. I'm just doing these small reaches behind me and tapping my foot down. Small reaches. You can also add these to your side steps. So if I'm here doing a side step, I could take a few steps, kick back, take a couple steps, kick back, kick back. So again, when I kick back, I'll show it this way. When I kick back, everything's staying completely the same in my core. I just kick back, little, reach back. It's not a big reach where I end up arching my back. Everything stays the same, just kick back, and you'll feel again in your glute area. All right, so those are different band walks you can do. Let's talk about clamshells next. So clamshells, I'm going to lay on my side. I suggest that when people do clamshells, be more open, meaning if I bring my knees in real close and do the clamshell here, I'm going to end up recruiting a lot of muscles in the front of my hip, and I'm trying to recruit muscles in the back of my hip to give me that good stability. So be more open, meaning I'm lining up, I'm in a straight line in the front of my body here. My feet are pointing back behind me. Keep your feet together, lift your top knee up, squeeze, I'm squeezing my left butt, and I'm coming back down. Now what tends to happen as we do this is we roll backwards. So please keep your hips stacked on each other as you open your top knee up. Don't roll backwards. Another thing that can tend to happen is you go into that tilt of your pelvis, where the bones at the front of the pelvis dump forward. And then again, I'm going to end up overusing the muscles in the front of my hip and not activating my butt as much as I could, and my core not as much as I could. So get in that neutral spine position, same position we've been talking about with everything. Then lift that top knee up, and then close. Give a good 1, 2, 3, close. You can also do this with a band. So if I put a band above my knees, same exact thing. I'm lined up in this good open position. My core is strong, my spine is in neutral, my pelvis is in neutral. Then I open up, hold 1, 2, 3, and close. Really watch, when you go to open, you're gonna wanna tilt your pelvis either forward or backward, or you're gonna wanna arch your back. Everything stays the same, you're just lifting your top knee and closing it. Lifting the top knee and closing it. My butt's already on fire from everything else, so you'll probably feel these right away. You can do both sides, 2 sets of 15, 2 sets of 10. These are great warm-ups before you go do other exercises, or if you're going for a run or a bike ride. This is a good way to start to say, hey muscles, turn on to do bigger activities. You can also do clamshells in standing, which I love. I really love standing clamshells. And you can hold on to a wall to give yourself some balance. I think this is a good angle you'll be able to see. So my left leg is behind my right leg. You don't want to be here. If I'm here doing the clamshell, I'm going to feel it all in the front of my hip. Extend your leg a little bit. This is totally straight, just like it is in every other exercise we've done. No tilting forward in the pelvis, no arch in the back. If you need to, I even do this sometimes with clients, they lean onto a table so that nothing can change here. They're just working on their hips. You're going to open your clam and close. It's a little movement. It's not really big. Open and close. So it's called external rotation of your hip. I'm opening my knee like it's going out to the side and then closing it. Open, close. Some people like to put their foot on the wall for this. I don't love it, but it's an option. You can put your foot on the wall. Same thing though, this knee is behind this knee. I'm gonna open and close. This way your foot doesn't, you don't have to figure out where that leg is in space. You just open the knee out and close. Open and close. I'll come a little closer so you can see me. You can do this without anything here. It's just harder to balance. You're gonna feel it on this leg because it's opening and closing, but you're gonna also feel it on the standing leg because that's stabilizing you and supporting you. I'll do it one more time facing you. If you're doing these standing, watch this knee that's standing. You don't want to do your clamshell and the knee knocks in. As soon as this knee knocks in, I'm not utilizing my hip. You have to push this knee out into the band and keep the knee pointing straight ahead as you open and close the other one. So once the knee knocks in, this hip muscle turns off. Push the knee out as you open and close. Whew. All right, so those are standing clamshells. Let's talk about bridges. Bridges are a great exercise to strengthen the butt. There's multiple versions of them that you can do. A band or a block could be helpful, so I'll have both handy. So what's really important when you do your bridge is the same thing we've been talking about. That's the good news. When you go up into the bridge, you don't want to have that, what's called that anteropoid tilt. So you don't want the front of the hip bones to tilt forward and rotate forward almost like up to the sky. So you start in that good strong core position. Pull your belly in, almost like I'm pulling these hip bones down to the floor. Before you go up, squeeze your butt muscles, like I'm squeezing my butt cheeks towards each other. Push through your heels, lift your hips up off the floor. It's not very high, so this isn't a bridge in yoga where you go into like a back bend. This is a butt activation exercise. Hold for 3 to 5 seconds and then slowly come back down. Even when you come back down, you want to think like you're still squeezing your butt muscles. So I push through my heels, lift my hips up. Don't let your pelvic bones come forward and then you end up arching your low back. So you want to stay in this good lock position. Your pelvis is tucked under slightly. You're pulling your pubic bone up towards your belly button. Same thing. And then keep it as you lower back down. Push through your heels. Squeeze your butt muscles at the top. I'm not very high. Hold for about 3 to 5 seconds and then close or come back down. Pull your belly in, even do a little bit of that tuck, like I'm pulling those pelvic bones down to the floor more. Then lift up. Hold for 3 to 5, drive through your heels, and then come back down. You can do another version where you squeeze a block between your knees. That'll help to activate the inner thigh muscles more. So I squeeze my core, I squeeze the block, I do a little tuck of my pelvis, and then I lift my hips up towards the sky. So my inner thighs are now working a little bit more because I have the block. Keep your butt working as you lower back down. Same thing, squeeze the block, pull your belly in, drive through your heels, lift on up. And then come back down. I'll do 2 more like this. Belly strong, squeeze the block, tuck under, lift up, and then come back down. Pull my belly in, squeeze my block, tuck my pelvis under like I'm tucking my imaginary tail, and then lift my hips up. So you shouldn't feel any pinching or discomfort in your low back. This is purely really working your butt muscles. And then slowly come back down.
You can also do this with a band. So I put the band right above my knees. I bring my feet a little bit
closer together for this one. And you're going to do all the same stuff. Pull the belly in, drive through the heels. As I lift up, I'm going to push my knees apart. As I come back down, I bring my knees together. So I'm still keeping my core strong. I'm still squeezing my butt on the way up and the way down. So it's all the same stuff. Watch the pelvis though. You don't want it to tilt forward as you do this. You got to keep that tuck. Push the knees apart. Bring them back together when you come back down. You can also do this one knee at a time. So meaning do feet about hip distance apart, maybe a little bit more narrow. Pull your belly in, squeeze your butt, lift your hips up. I can push my right knee out, bring it back in, left knee out. Bring it back in, come down. Belly strong, little tuck of my pelvis, push through my heels, squeeze my butt, lift up. Push one knee out, bring it back in, push the other knee out, bring it back in, come back down. I'll do that a few more times. Pull the belly in, tuck the pelvis under, drive through the heels, lift up, push one knee out, bring it back in, push the other knee out, bring it back in. Bridges are great to do. I love doing bridges after core work, especially the marching, the bird dogs, or the dead bugs, any of that core stuff. Bridges are great to do after. The last version for a bridge is using a march with it. So you can bridge up, push through my right foot, lift my left foot up, bring my left foot down, push through my left foot, lift my right foot. Come back down. Really important, don't let the pelvis change at all. So pull the belly in, tuck the pelvis under, lift up. Don't let anything change. I just lift one foot up, I march, bring it back down, squeeze your butt, squeeze your butt, squeeze your butt, lift the other one up. Come back down. Belly in, tuck under, drive through your heels, lift up. Push through your right heel, lift your left foot up. Don't let your pelvis drop. Bring that foot back down, push through your left heel, lift your right foot up. Come back down. Watch also not to push down with your arms. You want to push down with your feet to get your legs working more than your shoulders. Last, the most challenging one is a single leg bridge. So you keep one foot on the floor, the other foot can stay bent like this. Drive through that heel, belly strong, lift your hips up, come back down. Belly strong, drive through the heel, lift up, come back down. You want to feel this in your butt. You'll feel it in your hamstring too, but try to primarily work on squeezing the butt to lift the hips. I'm going to go to the other side. If you have the knee bent, it's a little bit easier. You can move towards a straighter leg, which is really challenging. Lift up. So as soon as you lift that leg, if you go into that arch in your back and your pelvis tilts forward and you start to overuse your hip flexors and your back muscles, you'll start to underuse your butt and your core, and that's the whole reason we're doing this. So that last option that I'm showing you with a straight leg is super hard. You might be able to do 3 reps on each side. You just want to keep your pelvis tilted backwards, right? So you don't want to let it tilt forwards. Tilt backwards, like I'm pulling those bones of the pelvis, the front of the pelvis, down towards the floor, not up towards the sky. Super challenging exercise. So it's important that we do these exercises with good form. All right, let's do some side leg lift series. I'm going to go a little closer to the wall because I'll progress one of them to the wall. So you're going to lay on your side. And you're going to do, these are like Jane Fonda exercises. So you're on your side, and again, watch that your pelvis doesn't roll forward and you end up in that anterior tilt where the front of the hip bones are moving forward. So pull the front of the hip bones back slightly, so I'm in this good neutral spine position. It's better to come all the way down for this one. Don't prop yourself on your elbow. So I'm pulling the front of the front of the hip bones back. Now I'm going to lift my top leg up and slightly back behind me. Hold for 1, 2, 3, and then come back down. Lift up, slightly back, and then come back down. You can use your hand to help you balance. The better you get at it, the better core activation you get, the less you're going to need to use that hand. So kick up and back. Pull your belly in, pull your ribs back. Don't let the front of the pelvis tilt forward. So as soon as I do this exercise here, it just means I'm using my back muscles. I'm not even really using my butt anymore. I'm pulling the pelvis back. I'm tucking it under and down as I lift the top leg. You can also do something called hip circles. And also make sure when you lift that top leg, you're lifting it up and back behind you slightly. So you're kind of at an angle. Let me move the microphone. Okay. So it's up and slightly back to the wall behind you. Don't go too far back because then you're going to tilt. Stay strong, stay neutral. So hip circles, the top leg lifts, and I do tiny circles. These are really hard. Nice, slow and controlled, and trying to keep my toe pointing straight ahead the whole time. I can do 5 to 10 of them in one direction and then go the other direction. 5 to 10 of them. Be careful not to let this leg creep forward too much, because if it creeps forward, then I'm going to end up using the muscles in the front of my hip. Try to keep it back slightly, because remember, we're focused on the muscles in the back of the hip and the sides of the hip. Whew. So when you do these side leg lifts or the hip circles, you could do 2 to 3 sets on each side. Another one you can do, we call these wall slides. And if you have like I'm going to use a big blanket. It's not preferred. Use like a towel instead. And I'm going to put this on my heel. I'm going to lay on my side, and I'm a little bit away from the wall so that when I kick this leg back into the wall, my butt's not at the wall, just my heel. I'm going to push my heel into the wall the whole time, slide my heel up, hold 1, 2, 3, and then slowly bring it back down. Push my heel into the wall, slide up, hold 1, 2, 3, and then come down. And you want to make sure you're not tilting forward. So these front of the hip bones, don't let them tilt forward. Pull them back towards the back of your body. Belly strong, pulling your pubic bone up towards your belly button. It's all the same thing. I know I sound like a broken record, but maybe it takes until now sometimes to finally, oh, I get it. And I want you to really understand that you have to do this in every exercise. It's so important to maintain the stability in order to do the exercise properly. All right? Those are called wall slides. Rose wall slides, you could do those instead of just the side leg lifts. All right? Let's do a couple things standing. Oh, you know what we didn't do? Let's do on a bridge on a ball. So these are called hip thrusters or bridges on ball. You could slide back so that the ball is on your upper back. And guess what? It's the same thing as a bridge. So my heels or my feet are hip distance apart. My hips move down to the floor, and as my hips move down, my chest comes, or my head comes more upright. And then I push through my heels, I squeeze my butt, I lift my hips up, and my head goes back. So this will help me keep my spine totally straight the whole time. Hips move down to the floor. As my hips move down, my head comes up. My spine stays totally straight. Squeeze my butt, lift my heels up, or lift my hips up by pushing my heels down. My head goes back. If you just bring your hips down, you'll end up in this big arch, like you're arching over the ball, and we don't want that to happen. So that's why if you bring your head up, it will encourage your spine to stay in a straight position. Squeeze your butt, lift your hips up, and then slowly come back down. Again, I call these hip thrusters. You can call them bridge on the ball. You can put a weight at the front of the pelvis and do these with a weight here. So butt moves towards the floor. Good strong core, drive through your heels, squeeze your butt, lift up, head moves back. Hold for 3 to 5 seconds. Come back down, head comes up as my butt goes down. Drive through my heels, squeeze my butt, lift my head back up. So again, you want to feel your butt working here. You'll feel your hamstrings a bit too, but mostly, primarily focus on your butt. You don't want to feel this in your low back. If you do, you're probably using those back muscles too much, and work more on getting that posterior tilt of the pelvis, getting the tilt this way. That'll help you to get your butt muscles, then go back up. Okay? So let's do one on the standing. We'll do 2 standing. So this one, I'm gonna stand, we'll go to this wall. You can use a block, a ball, if you had like a squishy ball. You're gonna put it right above your knee and push it into the wall. I'm gonna stand on my leg that's away from the wall, and just like we did with the standing clamshells, your other leg is gonna be slightly behind your standing leg. Belly strong, I'm leaning forward slightly. I'm pushing my right leg into the wall, into the block that's against the wall. And when I do that, I'll feel my left butt fire and light up. Hold for about 5 seconds and then relax. Push again into the wall. Push your knee into the block or to the ball. Hold for 5 seconds. I'll feel it in my standing leg and then relax. Again, I'm going to do this without the wall, but my torso is forward a little bit. My back is straight. I'm not in the arch. So if I'm in this arch position, I'm not going to feel it as much in my leg, my standing glute, and I'm going to feel it more on my back. I'm going to also end up creating that shortening and that compensation in the front of my hip. So super important. Keep the back straight, push into the wall, hold for about 3 to 5 seconds, and then relax. You'll feel it in the standing leg. This type of exercise and this standing clamshell are really important of learning how to activate that butt muscle when you're standing on that leg. So then when you go to do things like squats and lunges, you understand, oh, I need to use this big muscle to help do the exercise, not just your quads, right? So let's do something called a single leg RDL, kind of like Warrior 3 if you do yoga, but we're gonna break it down and do it in segments. So we're gonna feel it in the leg that we're standing on. You can do this close to a wall because if you don't wanna worry about the balance, just hold on to the wall. So stand on your right leg, keep a little bend in your right knee. I'm gonna hinge my torso forward and sit my butt back, almost like I'm sitting into a chair behind me. Push through your right heel a lot, that'll start to turn on that right butt muscle. Then lift your left foot off the floor. Then you can move towards straighter in your left leg or keep a little bend in it and then come back up. The more you bring your torso down and the more you bring your leg up, the more challenging it is. So I'm going to go slow and then I'll get more challenging. Torso down first, like I'm hinging back. I'm sitting, I'm putting the weight in my right heel. I lift the left leg off the floor. I bring the left leg down, I bring my torso back up. I bring my torso down, hinge at the hip, put the weight in the right leg, right heel, lift the left leg up, bring the left leg down, come back up. Super important to get, we call it a hip hinge, where you hinge back, you put the weight in your heel and don't let your knee go past your toe. That's what's going to activate your butt muscle. I'm going to turn to the other side and I'll make it more challenging now. Weights on my left leg. Hinge at my hip so my torso comes forward. It comes more parallel to the floor now to make it more challenging. Foot comes off the floor. Lift the back leg up. The longer the leg is, meaning the straighter it is, the more challenging it is. Bring the leg back in. Come to stand. Keep your torso totally straight so my back doesn't arch at all. I hinge at my hip. I sit back in my left heel. Torso comes down. Leg goes up. Bend the knee, bring the leg in, bring the torso up. I'll do this one more time. Torso towards the floor, hinge back, sit into your heel, put the pressure in your left heel. Belly stays strong. Lift the right leg up. Bring the leg in, inhale, come up. So that's a nice way to break it down into like a sequence of a warrior 3 or a single leg RDL. You can then eventually go into a moving pattern with it. So single leg RDLs, you may have seen them before. Put my weight on my right leg. All the movement's happening at my hip. Nothing changes in my spine. Nothing changes at my knee. It's not a squat. It's not a lunge. So I hinge at my hip. Shift the weight to my right heel. I come forward with my hand and I come back up. Hinge at the hip. Remember, the straighter that back leg goes, the more challenging it is. And then come back up. My core is strong. I'm sitting the weight into my right heel. My arm isn't reaching. It's just following the movement of my torso. So it's not here, right? I'm keeping my back straight. My arm is just reaching. It's moving with my torso. And then come back up. Really sit into that left heel. Belly stays super strong. The straighter the right leg, the more challenging it is. So these, again, are called single leg deadlifts or RDLs, single leg RDLs. All right, so those to me are some corrective exercises that you can do, again, as a warm-up. If you're having any kind of back pain or hip pain, these are some good exercises you can start with. Start with the easier ones that we did at the beginning of the series, and then they can progress to more challenging. If you have any pain with them, don't do them. But then as you progress and do things like squats and lunges, you maintain that same stuff that you learned here. So when you do a squat, feet are a little bit wider than hip distance apart. You can turn your toes out slightly or keep your toes straight ahead. When you do your squats as part of your workout routine, when you squat down, you don't want your pelvis to change. So you don't want to go into that tilt in your pelvis, which is super common when we do squats. We tend to go into that big arch in our back. So keep your core strong. I'm pulling my pubic bone up towards my belly button. I'm tucking my tail under slightly. And I'm going to keep that even as I sit back. So you should be able to see the difference in my back. I'm feeling my butt muscles now more when I do this. And I come up and I squeeze my butt. So I sit back into my heels. This didn't change. Sit into the weight into your heels and then come back up. Again, nothing changed in my back as I do this. There we go. That changed. This, no change. It seems really subtle, but it makes a big difference over repeated patterns and over repeated time. It makes a big difference. So sitting back, sitting back, sitting back. Core stays really strong. I'm pulling my pubic bone towards my belly button. When I come to the top, I squeeze my butt and everything stays the same. So I don't lose it when I get to the top. Everything stays the same as I sit back and I come back up. Same thing goes for lunges. So say you're doing a reverse lunge and you're stepping back and stepping forward. I'm not going to go over every detail of the lunge, but you want to feel like your core is strong. You're driving through your heel, so you don't just feel it in your quad. You want to also feel it in your glute here. So I'm driving through into my heel as I step back. So again, keep these exercises in mind as a way to, 1, heal if you have an injury, 2, prevent injury, 3 is part of a warm-up for some bigger exercise. And they are a workout. You could just do these. These are workout exercises, not just warm-ups. So for some of, I mean, this is most of what I do. Yes, I also do deadlift, like more weighted things, deadlifts and lunges, but these are a great part to incorporate into any exercise program. Let me know if you have any questions. You can email me or call me. Thanks so much. Bye.